I mean, it's that kind of
Yeah.
sweet vanilla-y.
Yeah, let's go with that one.
Vanilla-y. Coming to you barely alive from the Beer to Whiskey Studios high atop Barley's Tap Room on Washington Street in downtown Greenville, South Carolina. I'm Russ Heaps, and welcome to this episode of Big John in 5. That's where I get my good buddy here, the beer whisperer around these parts, Big John Richards, to pick a beer from one of Barley's 72 taps, or there are 50 to 60 cans and bottles. We sniff it, we sip it, we kibitz about it. John tells us a little bit about the brewery. Sometimes John even shares a little brewing history with us. And the best part is we get to drink beer.
Good beer.
Good beer.
Good beer.
I'm not sure that this is actually cataloged as beer, but
We're not positive.
Not
This
positive.
could be almost anything.
John, what is this?
So we have a barley wine in front of us, which has its own wonderful, fun history. In this case, we have a barley wine that's a collaboration between Edmund's Oast, which is in Charleston, and Orpheus, which is in Atlanta. And this is a rum barrel aged version of Edmund's Oast's God of Sleep barley wine, which is a fantastic name for a barley wine.
It is. And we're going to try, we're going to attempt to stay upright throughout this segment.
For at least the next 5 minutes.
At least.
Yes.
At least.
That's wonderful. So this a big 11%er, which is right where barley wine should be. BJCP says 8 to 11%. So I'm sorry, 8 to 12%, and this is at 11. So we're right in there. It's always a dark colored beer. They call it an English style barley wine, which typically means you're going to see a little bit more of like fermentation fruit flavors and a little more earthy hop texture versus American barley wine, which is going to get more aggressive with the American hops, a more pronounced bitterness up front, and then more of that piney and woody bitterness that you expect out of almost double IPA. So starting with English style barley wine and then aging it in rum barrels is really just going to amp up the sweetness. And those big fruit flavors are going to shine, and the molasses. Probably taste some of the barrel in there. I'm so excited. I am so excited. I love these big beers.
Should we be dialing 911 as we...
Probably.
Okay.
Probably. But we will soldier on for you.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
Making sure that we carry the banner for as long as possible.
This is darker and has more cloud in it than the Mississippi River after a hard rain.
It does.
I have this.
I commented while I was pouring it that this thing pours like mud.
Yeah.
It really does.
Holy.
I mean, that is crazy. Like looking at it through the lights, you could almost see the silt.
Yeah.
Settling to the bottom.
Wow.
It's so good.
John is making up for the 3 or 4 sours and gozes and other silly things that we did earlier today on this shoot and other segments.
For you.
For you. I do it for you.
Right.
So John is trying to redeem himself here with this.
Yes.
I think he's probably going to be doing a damn nice job.
All right. Let's see what happens.
All right.
I think we should have a sip.
I agree. Man, it's
Otherwise,
heavy.
get parched.
I can hardly pick it up.
I know, right?
High
Gravity indeed.
Indeed.
Wow, man.
That's all like plums
That's like
and
a pie. It's like a
raisins.
yeah, rum raisin, freaking bananas.
Wow.
Oh man, what a big nose that is. Look, I'm capable of sipping.
I see that. This You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of like a rum lifesaver.
Yeah,
That's what I'm getting
I can see that.
with a little alcohol thrown in. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm getting.
I'm getting
this
like
is really good.
it's like a big, isn't there a rum bread? Is there kind of rum bread?
I'm sure somebody's figured out a way to make bread out of rum with rum.
I've got this weird thing in the back of my head. It's because it tastes a little like banana bread without the bread mixed with rum.
Wow, it tastes like a rum lifesaver to me.
There's a ton of rum flavor in there.
There is.
There's a lot of that real caramelized sugar, molasses, dark, burnt sugar.
It's almost,
flavor.
yeah, if maybe they had aged this in charred oak barrels, it would almost be a bourbon, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's that kind of
Yeah.
sweet vanilla E.
Yeah, let's go with that one.
Vanilla E thing that you get out of some bourbons. Wow.
Yeah, there's while I say there's a lot of booze flavor in there, this amazingly doesn't burn at all.
There's not a big alcohol
No.
sort of.
Other than the flavors of the alcohol, it doesn't feel like alcohol.
Right. This is really
Which is
good.
terrifying.
This is really good. Yeah, we should have had a jigger of this.
Right?
Is what we should have done.
I feel like I keep bringing up bananas, and I know there's not a bunch of bananas in there, but I feel like if you had this with a real bananas Foster, it's actually been set on fire, what a great combination that would be.
It would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow, that is good. That is dangerous. This is dangerous stuff right here. There should be a Surgeon General's warning.
It probably
On
is,
this.
but it should be more explicit than.
Yeah. Do not. Big red circle and red line
Right.
through it. Wow, this is really, really good.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Good job, guys. Both these breweries are wonderful. I want to get back to talking about barley wine, but I'm going to talk briefly, or at least introduce these breweries, because I don't remember if we've done an Edmund's Oast.
I don't think we have.
We were talking about that off camera, and neither of us can remember of having, and that is a huge oversight, because they're one of the best breweries in the state.
They do make some good stuff.
And I'm glad that we've got one of theirs on here, and we'll have to endeavor to make sure we get some more. But they've been doing really good work down there. They make, literally everything they touch is really good, and they make some of the best sours in the state. It's probably one of the reasons we haven't seen them a bunch, because Russ doesn't do a bunch of sours. But they
make some other good stuff.
They make a lot of really good beer.
And I know there are a lot of restaurants and bars in Greenville that carry different beers.
Yeah, they've got a great footprint up here, plus in Charleston. I don't know if they make it out of the state though.
I don't know.
And then we got Orpheus, which is just now getting out of Georgia, hitting our market. And Orpheus has been making great beer down there for forever. A bunch of their beers are big beers too. So collaborating on a big beer is not a surprise for them.
They did a great job on this.
Bang up job. So cheers to both of those guys. And I do want to address barley wine before we get out of here and what it is, because lots of people ask this question. When it shows up on a board, it's almost even hard to sell this beer because people don't have any idea what it is. In fact,
this is if this was in print, this would be in the FAQ section below.
Right.
Go ahead.
For those of you who don't want a science or a history lesson, fast forward the next 11 minutes. This particular style of beer is confusing enough that coming out of Prohibition, when American brewers started brewing it, the government would not allow them to just call it barley wine, which is what its style is called. The American government makes you label it a barley wine style ale, so that people won't confuse it for a wine product. The reason it's called barley wine is 1,000 years ago, when the Norman invasion happened of England, and they started bringing wine, the nobility started asking for wine because they were French. Then the nobility, or the wine, became the drink of the higher classes. Beer became the drink of the lower classes. And so in order to compete, brewers started brewing this high strength beer that could compete with any sort of food at a table or a feast table. Big flavors, high alcohol, and just to make sure that no one missed the subtlety, they called it a barley wine, so that it would compete very specifically with wine. So that's part of what this is supposed to be, is a wine that could, or a wine, see here I go, is a beer that could sit on your table in any way that you would presume a wine could in any of those high class situations. I'm using air quotes, and I still do it sometimes.
It's making me dizzy watching you wave your arms out.
As long as I don't knock this guy over. So that's where where it really comes down to, it's not all that complicated of a thing. It's just calling it barley wine leads people to wonder what it is. And so it's a high strength beer. It's usually like 8 to 12% alcohol. It's usually got some amount of bitterness up front and some amount of alcohol burn. And like I said at the beginning, the American styles will have a little more hoppy American hop bitterness, and the English styles will have a softer, more herbal kind of bitterness, and usually more fruit, like fermentation fruit flavors like figs and raisins and whatnot.
What is the top end of a barley wine, alcohol-wise?
12 in style, but I've seen them go higher than that.
The first one I was ever introduced to was 13.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was a little brewery in New Mexico called Santa Fe Brewing Company, and they really only had one beer that they had gotten labeled approved, and so they could distribute it to restaurants and that sort of thing. But when you went to the brewery, and we did, and we went and had a little tour, and when that was done, this guy kept going into the back and dragging out stuff that nobody had ever heard of.
Right.
That I guess they can sell out of the brewery. And one of them was called Chicken Killer Barley Wine.
Like it.
Because they had a dog that ran around there and killed chickens and stuff, so they called it chili. But it was 13, I remember vividly, it was 13%. And this was 25, 30 years ago.
Sure.
That I was at
And
this
these
place.
styles are more defined now than they were then.
Well, that maybe that was
And
the case, that it was a little looser back
they're
then.
in any style category, you're setting parameters, but they're not exclusive. Like, for instance, we just got finished talking about a Doppelbock that doesn't fit into the BJCP guidelines, but is one of the most well-known and one of the progenitors of the style, the celebrator Doppelbock, which is 6.7, and the style says it's between 7 and 10.
Right.
So no style is binding by law. And the only time you really ever get into trouble is if you entered into a competition, and typically it would have to be wildly out of style. Like if you entered a barley wine that was 6%, you'd be like, they'd laugh at you. This doesn't belong here.
This is no stinking barley
Get this stuff
wine.
out of here,
Yeah.
But if you entered one that was 13, they might go, oh, this is an extra big barley wine, and they might take off a point, for being slightly out of style alcohol-wise, but they're not going to write it off out of hand.
Well, this was such a unique thing, and I was so smitten with it.
Oh, yeah.
That I bought 2 cases. I bought 2 cases of it, and this was back, so long ago you could carry anything on an airplane, and I carried them on to an airplane because you couldn't check them, and so here I am in the airplane shoving these things up into the.
Are you walking down the aisle with 2 cases just sort of piled up to your chin?
Yeah. And and they didn't at first. They didn't want to let me on the plane. I'd flown from I don't know, I guess maybe Tucson to, and this was a New Mexico beer. I had to drive to Tucson, get on a plane, drive from Tucson, or fly from Tucson to Houston, and then Houston back home, which was in Florida at the time. And the first flight, there was no problem. They just let me, I'm struggling, I carried it. Yeah, go ahead, carry it on, put it up in the thing. In Houston, now they want to argue with me about whether or not I can take it on the plane. I'm like, I've already taken it on the plane. That's why I've got it. It was a whole thing. I'd never heard of it. I'd never heard of barley wine. I had no clue. It was pretty good. At least I thought so at the time. I was a kid, but yeah. So that was my experience.
Well, people have been making good barley wine for 40 years now. So one of the first ones was Anchor's Old Foghorn. And for instance, well, in naming conventions, a lot of your barley wines are going to be old something or another. I don't know what that harkens back to, other than it's kin to an old ale as well. But they all seem to be old something, old crustacean, old horizontal is the name of a good one. This one's God of Sleep, which I guess is old something or another, but
which is
it's still just
you're right. That's an excellent name.
All right,
we done?
We might as well be. I think I'm out of breath.
I'm tired of sitting up.
I'm certainly tired of not drinking this beer.
I'm tired of sitting up. So damn lucky. See you next time.